Okay, this is one of the first steps to solving a trigonometric equation, and we're basically going to look at what happens when we have the trigonometric ratio of some angle equals a number. Okay, so our first example is going to go ahead and be the sine of theta equals 1/2. Now that is a known value. So we think to ourselves, okay, that we can say theta equals whatever angle that we go ahead and take the sine of 1/2 of, or I'm sorry, whatever angle that when we take the sine of it, it equals a negative 1/2. That said, is that it is going to live in here based on our classroom adventures of the domain and range of arc sine, or the inverse sine. So we're picking an angle that is going to equal a negative, when we take the sine of it, is going to equal a negative 1/2. Well, we know it has to be in this area right here, because that's where cosine is positive. And so we think, okay, well, what angle, when I go ahead and take the sine of it, is going to equal a negative 1/2, that's in that shaded region. It looks like we can safely say that it's going to be this guy right here, okay? And it looks like that is going to be a negative 30 degrees, or a negative pi over 6. And so theta will equal a negative pi over 6. Now notice we can do that without a calculator because these are known values. And what we're going to do is switch gears and see what happens when we have to use a calculator. Okay, this next one is it's asking us to find what angle in radians, then when we take the sine of it, it's going to be a negative 3/5. And so far, we're just working in this area because we know that is the domain and range of what we get to go ahead and pick from arc sine. So therefore, we're looking for that angle. However, we notice that that is not a nice value. That is that usually the values that we know are going to be 0, 1/2, root 2 over 2, root 3 over 2, etc., 1, that are going to be known values of sine. So what we have to do on this particular case is that we have to use our calculator, scientific or otherwise, that is going to fetch this number for us. And so we know that the radian degree is going to be somewhere in here. And this is just an estimation. I don't really know what it is. But as I punch it into my calculator, it looks like theta is going to be a negative 0.644 radians. And so, in cases like that, we have to use our graphing calculators or scientific calculators to fetch the angle that we need. This next example is that when we're trying to find theta, when we're not sure if theta really exists. And to go ahead and take a look at this thing, is that we're saying we take the sine of theta, whatever angle that is, and it equals 3 over 2. However, the problem is that when we look at sine, just in its parent form here, we are looking at it, it only goes from 1 to a negative 1. And those are all the values all the way here through 2 pi. That said, is that there is not going to be any value of theta that is going to give us 3 over 2 up here. That is that the sine wave doesn't reach that. So there's no input that's going to give us 3 over 2. So therefore, in this case, there's going to be no solution. And if you put this into your calculator, I'm quite sure it will give you something of error or domain error, etc., and that's your immediate cue that, hey, this happens to have no solution here. Our next one has to do with tangent, and tangent, we changed the game a little bit because we have these guys over here to go ahead and pick from. So these are the angles that we can fetch using arctangent. So we think to ourselves here, okay, well, what value or what angle do I take the tangent of and it gives me 3 over 2? That's not a known value. because we know that tangent's values are going to be 0, square root of 3, 1, square root of 3 over 3 are undefined. So therefore, let's go ahead and take a look at what we got going on. So what we're going to have to do is take the inverse tangent here and find out what that is going to equal. And so it looks like that's going to be approximately 0.983, rounding to the nearest thousandth. Okay, our final example is one of those reciprocal type deals, and what you want to do is to put this in terms of sine, cosine, or tangent just by using some algebra. And when I have it to this level, what I use is that you can go ahead and flip this entire thing upside down on both sides to make it a true statement. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to flip this upside down, and I would have 1 over secant of theta equals 2 over 1. Okay? Now 1 over secant of theta from our 15 and 10, if you will, is going to go ahead and be cosine of theta equals 2. So what angle do I take the cosine of to give me 2? This is one of those examples that it would be way up here. Is that we know that cosine only goes from 1 to a negative 1. And therefore, trying to get cosine to go to a positive 2 is impossible. And so therefore, there's going to be no solution. And like the third example there, you could plug this into your calculator, and you will see that it will give you something that is going to be along the line of, hey, it doesn't exist. So that's the beginning stages of solving trigonometric equations, and that's how you do that. Thank you for watching.